Hey y'all, welcome back. My name is Christina, and on this channel I love to talk about The Baby Whisperer. This is her book that I love. It is called The Baby Whisperer Solves All Your Problems, and I have a lot of videos of me going through each chapter of this book and talking a little more about my experience with it with my oldest daughter. I found this book when my oldest daughter was 11 weeks old. I never used it with a baby younger than that, but now I have a 2-week-old baby as well, and I have been so excited to try out all of the Baby Whisperer techniques on my newborn. And so in this video, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the last 2 weeks and provide you with some tips that can help you be set up for success with your newborn. Now, I just want to say first off that the first 2 weeks of your baby's life are very important for your baby's health and for your health. So really the main goal during the first 2 weeks are to make sure your baby is healthy, that they are gaining weight, that they're getting enough to eat, that they're sleeping well, if there's any underlying health conditions, figuring those out. And for you and your health, you take the time to recover, to get as much rest as you can, and to figure out any breastfeeding issues if you are breastfeeding, things like that. So really there's no focus on getting your baby on a routine or a schedule at this time. It's just important that you make sure that you're healthy and that you're adjusting to life with a newborn. However, there are lots of things that you can do during the first 2 weeks that will help you later in the long run develop good habits and develop a good system and rhythm with your baby. So the first sample routine that Tracy Hogg does include in her book is at the 4-week mark. So I would say that it's essentially your goal when your baby is 4 weeks old to be following this routine if you are interested in doing her easy routine. And anything before 4 weeks is just, be easy on yourself, be gentle on yourself with that. But if you do adjust to life with your newborn pretty quickly and you both are doing well and you've worked out any issues that may have come up and your baby is gaining weight and hopefully back to their birth weight by 2 weeks, then you can start with this goal of getting to that 4-week easy routine that she lists out in her book. And so these tips that I'm going to share with you will help you get to that point pretty easily, and will also just help you in the long run with sleep training and with making sure your baby's on an age-appropriate feeding schedule as well. But these tips are really just additional add-ons to just making sure that you and your baby are healthy during the first few weeks. So I have 5 tips for y'all today. The first tip is to get on the easy routine that Tracy Hogg does lay out. And this isn't really a routine, it's more of like a cycle that you repeat throughout your day, especially at this age in your baby's life. You're going to see that they literally just eat and sleep and eat and sleep. And easy is eating, activity, sleep, and then you time. And there's not really going to be a lot of activity at this point because of how sleepy they are and how long they take to eat. So you're just going to have this cycle of waking your baby to feed them, burping them, changing their diaper if they are awake for a little bit, giving them some tummy time, and then putting them down for a nap. And while they are sleeping, then you have your time and you can do whatever you want. You can nap, you can shower, you can eat, you can just spend the time however you desire to spend it. You do want to get into the habit of that cycle essentially, because when you do start your baby on a more official routine at 4 weeks, then you'll already be used to that cycle. You'll already be used to the steps of it, and your baby will be used to it as well, and it'll be something comfortable and familiar. Now, the opposite cycle that you could even be on at this point would be like an activity, eating, sleeping cycle. And the danger of that is that your baby would then associate sleeping with eating. And so that's why you kind of want to have that break between feeding them, the break, and then their nap. You don't want them to wake up, have activity time, and then eat and fall asleep immediately afterwards, because you don't want their sleep to be dependent on if they've had a full meal right before that. And you also want to make a difference there and make it clear that you're not feeding your baby to sleep. And this is going to look a little different at night because you don't really have an activity period at night. When they wake up to eat, you just want to feed them and put them back down. So obviously there, you don't want to have any awake time, and you don't want to teach them to be awake in the night. But during the day, you really do want to emphasize that awake period as much as you possibly can within your baby's abilities. Tip number 2 kind of goes along with that. You should track everything that you are doing. And there's so many apps out there that help you do this, and this is something that, you know, they have you do in the hospital anyway, but you should keep doing it once you get home because it's going to teach you so much about your baby's patterns and their behavior. And by the time you do get them on a routine, and eventually to 3 months, 4 months, that's when things change to a 4-hour routine, then you'll just have a better idea of their eating habits, their sleep habits, how long their naps are, their wake windows, as well as when they do eat. If you time their feedings, you'll actually be able to tell if they've had a full feed or not. Or if you might need to wake them up to eat a little more, if they've fallen asleep, things like that. So I highly recommend, I have this app called Nara Baby. There's I have no association or affiliation with them at all, but I love this app so much. It's totally free. There's no upgrades or anything. There's no ads either. And it's this beautiful app, this amazing user interface. It's just fun to use. It's great. And so I highly recommend it. I'll put the link to it down below so y'all can check it out if you're interested. But I literally track everything that my daughter does. And something I love about this app is that it takes all of the data that I put into it and it kind of puts it into a spreadsheet, so I can see a summary of her day compared to her week. And it also summarizes everything. It tells me her average wake time, it tells me her average nap time, her average nighttime sleep time, her average feed time, everything. And so I'm very aware of when she's getting her full feeds, if she's taking long enough naps, if she's up for too long between her naps, things like that. And it's very helpful in helping me have a full understanding of where she's at. And it's going to get even more helpful as she grows older because babies just get more complicated as they grow. My third tip is wake up your baby to feed them. And this also goes along with that easy routine. You're not necessarily looking at an actual schedule at this point yet, but you do want to be waking up your baby during the day to feed them once they've gone 3 hours, because you want them to go their longest stretch at night. So the way that babies actually get confused with their days and nights is if you let them sleep too long during the day. So the longest nap you'd ever want to give them, top for any age baby, would be 3 hours. I would never let my newborn go that long, I think, during the day because she eats every 3 hours. So right now our average nap time is about 2 hours long. And I would not recommend anything longer than a 2.5 hour nap personally at this age. But essentially you do want to wake them up once it's been 3 hours since their last feed, because you want to teach them that they should be waking up during the day and this is when their wake time is. And then at night, that's when you can let them go longer. That's when you don't have to necessarily wake them up to feed them unless they do have some growth issues. Then obviously follow your doctor's advice with that. But my doctor was okay with letting my daughter go 4 hours at this point, and she does do that at night pretty much at least once a night, which is really great. But it's just very important that we wake our baby up during the day, because it's so tempting, especially when we're so tired, to let them keep sleeping so we can get things done, so we can take a nap, so I can focus on my toddler. If you have any other kids, then obviously you want to spend the time with them as well. But we really need to get into the habit of waking them up during the day so that they don't get confused about when they should be awake. My tip number 4 is to be flexible. And this is just the perk of having a newborn, is obviously you can be really flexible with them. They're pretty sleepy, you can take them anywhere, they travel pretty well, and hopefully they feed pretty easily. So you don't want to be strict on yourself at this point. Just take time to adjust, to go slow. Don't push yourself to give them, feeds along a schedule or a certain routine. Just do what you need to do and don't be too worried about it. If you want to hold your baby while they nap, I think the first 2 weeks is probably the time where you can do that, where it's not going to necessarily develop a bad habit. If you want to take them out more and do more things, obviously that can be a little dangerous in the beginning, just health-wise. You don't want them to get sick or anything. So be smart about that, whatever your personal conviction is. But yeah, just be flexible. Don't feel like you have to fit your baby into a certain mold at this point. But do be on top of things and do be trying to lead them instead of following them. That's kind of the big idea with Tracy Hogg's whole easy system, is that we're leading our babies, we're anticipating their needs, but don't stress yourself out and feel like you have to conform to a certain schedule or a certain look in order to be successful at this stage. Now, my tip number 5 is probably the hardest tip, but it is so important and so vital at this stage to develop good sleep habits. So make sure you're doing the Baby Whispers 4S sleep routine from the beginning. So what we want here is to not introduce any sleep props. And it's hard to say that because a lot of babies in the first 2 weeks are very sleepy. So for the most part, they're probably going to be putting themselves to sleep, especially if they are a naturally good sleeper. But you don't want to accidentally get into the habit at this point of introducing a sleep prop like rocking, bouncing, swaying, giving your baby a pacifier to sleep, feeding them to sleep. Any of those things can be sleep props. Putting them in the car to sleep, holding them to sleep. Literally, there's so many sleep props. So the Baby Whispers 4S ritual, the first S is to set the scene. So when it's time for your baby to take a nap, don't just, leave them out in the sunny room to hopefully just fall asleep on their own. They could do that, and you can be flexible here. And, they take so many naps, it's not going to hurt them if maybe one nap a day is in a different environment than their own bed. But do your best to follow the 4S ritual as much as you can during this time, especially at nighttime. So you take them, you set the scene. That's the first S. You take them into a dark room, you make everything quiet, you can turn on white noise, you close the curtains, you get away from everything. Then you swaddle, that's the second S. And then you hold your baby and you sit totally still. And you don't move at all. And this is where you might accidentally introduce a sleep prop. You can stand, but I find myself like I naturally sway whenever I hold a baby. And I don't want her to be dependent on the swaying in order to fall asleep. So when you hold them, you never hold them for longer than 5 minutes. You try to do their head here on your shoulder. My daughter does, I don't think she thinks it's comfortable, so I kind of angle her a little bit. And you never hold them longer than 5 minutes because you don't want them to be dependent on being held to sleep. But essentially when you start to see that they are drowsy and sleepy, then you lay them down in their bed. And if they have any trouble falling asleep, then you do the 4th S, which is totally optional. You do it once they start crying or once they're restless and you know that they need some help calming down. And that's when you shush pat them. That might start while you're holding them. Ideally, it will start in the bed. And you keep them in their bed while you do it, so you can roll them onto their side, pat them on the back, and shush at the same time. And that will help to calm them and soothe them. And once they've been calmed down and they're starting to fall asleep, then you can kind of slowly phase out that shush pat and try to help them go to sleep on their own. That's just a brief summary of that. I do have a lot more to say about the 4S routine in my other videos, so feel free to check those out. But that's really what you want to be doing at this stage for the most part, because that's going to set you up for so much success with sleep. Sleep is definitely the biggest issue in the first few months. So many people are interested in learning about sleep training and learning about how they can teach healthy sleep habits. And the goal of this 4S routine is actually that you won't have to sleep train. When Tracy Hogg talks about pick up, put down, which is her big sleep training method, which I've done, it's a last resort. What she really wants people to be doing is this 4S routine from birth, because your baby will learn through that how to fall asleep on their own and ideally never even need pick up, put down. So that's my personal goal. I have no idea if I'm going to have to do pick up, put down or not, but I have been doing this routine, and for literally for most of her naps, unless we're going out, definitely in the middle of the night, I've had to do this quite a bit as well after feedings to get her back down to sleep. And it's working so well. And a lot of the time she puts herself to sleep, which is great. But even when I do have to do the shush pat, She responds to it well. It doesn't take me very long to do it, and she's asleep within like 10 minutes. It's really amazing. And I just remember with my oldest daughter, I would rock her at night, and I would like feed her for like 30 to 40 minutes, and then I'd spend an hour rocking her to sleep. So I was up for like twice the amount of time I needed to be up in the middle of the night. I was way more tired than I am now. And so for me, the 4S routine is just like a time saver as well. Even though it takes more energy. It takes way more energy and effort, and that's like the last thing you want to give at night. But if you could take 10 minutes to do the shush pat and then be back in bed, I do that over rocking for an hour, even if rocking is just sitting there and, you know, not really doing anything. I'm still not asleep in bed, and that's where I want to be. So, but it's so important to do it at this age because you're setting the groundwork for good habits for yourself as well, and you're teaching sleep at an early age. You're teaching it how it's supposed to be. And that is just so important, and hopefully will pay off in the long run. I'm planning to do another video once my daughter hits 4 weeks. I'm hoping that she'll be on the 4-week easy routine by then. She's basically almost on it now, but not quite. And hopefully I'll be able to share that update with y'all, share that routine with y'all as well, and hopefully encourage you to do the easy method, to do the 4S sleep ritual, to do everything that you can to help lay good habits down for your child at this early age, which is hard to do because we're exhausted, and when you're having your first baby, it's like a shock, and it's difficult to adjust. At least for me it was, and so that's why I didn't figure out all of this at the beginning. But now with my second one, hopefully I can help encourage you to do these things and to get sleep as fast as you possibly can. So stay tuned for that next video. It'll be in a couple weeks that I put that out, and in the meantime you can subscribe so that you can be updated when it does come out. Feel free to like this video as well and comment if you have any questions, or if you've also done the easy routine from birth and you want to share a little bit about your experience with that. I'd love to hear about it as well. So yeah, just feel free to say anything you want in the comments below, and I can answer any questions that y'all might have about the first 2 weeks of your baby's life. Thanks for watching.